Washington Union Station is one of the most important transportation hubs of the DC region, if not the entire Northeast United States. It's served by the busiest line on the Washington Metro, as well as many local buses and the DC streetcar. It's a focal point for intercity buses, as well as the MARC and VRE commuter rail lines, and of course is one of Amtrak's most important hubs, connecting trains on the Northeast Corridor to regional and long-distance services across the United States. I'd even argue Union Station is Amtrak's most important station, rivaling even Penn Station in New York. But whereas Penn Station, apart from the new Monahan train hall, feels like a utilitarian underground airport terminal that only caters to people in transit, Union Station is set up as a destination in and of itself. I say set up as a destination because I want to acknowledge that Union has fallen on rough times recently, due to a variety of factors, COVID and otherwise, which has increased the vacancy rate in the station's shopping and restaurant spaces. I also want to offer my prayers for the person who was stabbed in the station as this video was being produced. But anyway, in January 2024, I had a layover at Union Station on the way home from my trip to the pedestrianized suburb of Washington Grove, Maryland. I'll leave a link to the video I made about that in the description. I had a few good hours to wait at the station, and with crummy weather outside, I decided what better way to pass the time than explore the station. While some parts of Union definitely look as if they've seen better days, it didn't feel like the apocalyptic hole the press has been making it out to be. So today I'm giving you a guide to Union Station, its different areas, as well as how things will and could change in the future. Before I continue, a reminder to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want to see more videos like this. I'm a small channel, so every bit helps. We'll start at the First Avenue entrance on the station's west side, where I am bombarded by car horns. On a more positive note, the Smithsonian National Postal Museum is actually just across the street, housed in the former city post office. I've actually spent a brief time there, but I need to go back again. Now let's address the elephant in the room. This is one of the two entrances to the Washington Metro station at Union, which was actually one of the 5 original stations opened on the first day of the Metro nearly 50 years ago in 1976. The station is served by the Red Line, the busiest and arguably best served single line on the system. Unlike other stations further up the line that are deep underground like Forest Glen or Wheaton, Union Station was built quite shallow using cut and cover, and is thus just a quick escalator ride down from the street to the fare mezzanine, from where you can see the trains. As we return to the escalators, a quick praise to these next train LCD arrival screens, and to the Metro attendant who is out and about to answer customer questions. After returning to street level, we'll take a right turn and head into the west hall of the station building itself. As you enter, there are food outlets on both sides of the hall, including a Chipotle. Entering the cathedral-sized main hall, you get the sense that while not Penn Station busy, Union is far from dead. We'll make a quick jaunt to the south exit leading onto Columbus Circle, the loading point for taxis, rideshares, and tour buses, as well as providing a view of the Capitol building. On the east side of the main hall is the East Hall, which, while open, has literally nothing to speak of. There's also this area that apparently rents for special occasions. Urbanist meetup, anyone? Walking north through the main hall, we pass under one of the station's many passenger information LCD screens, and then enter the former train concourse, now the primary retail concourse, and which, as you can see, has 3 levels. The middle or ground level, which we're on now, houses Amtrak ticket counters as well as some shops and more food outlets. However, many more food options can be found down this spiral staircase on the lower level, which houses the food court as well as a Walgreens and an ATM. While there is a decent amount of choice in terms of food, I'm a little sad that Johnny Rockets isn't there anymore. It made for a very funny cameo in a certain Go Animate video. Returning to the middle level, you can continue straight north into Claytor Concourse, where the entrances to the actual platforms are located. Instead, we'll turn east and take this spiral staircase to the upper or mezzanine level. Out of all the areas in Union, you can see this has been hardest hit by COVID, likely as it's the most out of the way for travelers just passing through the station, and the fact that it's really dedicated for brick and mortar shopping. On a more positive note, we are also greeted with the Trattoria Una Pizza restaurant, one of the only sit-down restaurants in the station. One cool feature of Trattoria Uno is the ability to eat on this tall balcony, which I had the pleasure of doing when I visited the station in 2019 as part of NRHS Railcamp. We'll now turn north and finally cross into the Claytor train hall. For now, we'll just pass through and go through these doors. After a short escalator ride, we emerge into a large concrete structure. Up this escalator is 4 levels of parking and rental cars, 2 things you totally need at a city center train station. I will say dedicating so much real estate to car uses instead of transit-oriented development is a textbook case of bad land use, and likely one of the reasons the retail inside the station is struggling. It does, however, provide a decent view of the tracks and platforms leading out of the station. Fortunately, the land use around the station is set to dramatically change with Burnham Place, a transit-oriented development proposal which would develop the space above the Union Station platform tracks into a pedestrianized mixed-use neighborhood. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to learn more. Coming back to the first floor, we pass the ticket offices for Greyhound, and then walk past lines of parked intercity buses and local buses. I will say it was a bad decision to leave this walkway uncovered. My camera almost got ruined in the rain. The red buses parked here are part of the DC Circulator service, which is run by the city of DC separate from the buses run by Metro along with the DC streetcar. And speaking of which, out here in the middle of all the crazy wind, rain, and high-speed traffic on H Street is where you catch the DC streetcar, which of course pulled away just as I walked up. The fact that there isn't any canopy out to the streetcar platform, the fact that it requires such a long walk to the trains and the metro, and the fact that the terminus is in the middle of a 6-lane stroad is really problematic for the streetcar acting as a local transit option. But I'll talk more about this in a future DC streetcar video. Suffice to say, if the aforementioned Burnham Place development takes place, renters suggest this area would drastically improve. After all that, we return to Union Station itself, and descend to the ground level and the Claytor Concourse, where the entrances to the train platforms actually are. I must say I'm not really a fan of this area of the station. Amtrak has placed the waiting room area here instead of somewhere with more space, like the main hall, which actually used to be the main waiting room. I also don't like the fact that they've labeled the entrances to the platforms as gates, as it really adds to the sense of being in a cramped 80s style airport. Fortunately, Amtrak seems to have realized this too, and they actually have a really bold plan to expand the concourse up to the tracks, which would seriously improve the experience at Union and is also tied in with the Burnham Place development. They actually just won a key court victory that will give them the authority to do this. I'll leave a link to that article in the description. But that's in the future. Right now, if you walk to the west side of the concourse, we find a departure board dedicated for marked departures, which unfortunately, being a weekend, were sparse. This is another problem that is plaguing Union Station as a destination: lack of off-peak and weekend MARC and VRE service. If you only have trains that predominantly come in the morning and go out in the evening, that's a lot less potential customers for your business than if you have, say, people waiting for 5 or 6 trains going out every hour. Again, I'll probably make a dedicated video on DC commuter rail in the future. Walking through these doors, we finally see the trains, although unfortunately at Union you are officially barred from exploring the platforms on your own, and are told to wait until your train is called before coming out. Walking back inside, we walk west down this corridor, past some marked ticket machines, and then arrive at the second entrance to the metro station. After descending these escalators, you can see past the fare gates toward the escalators that lead onto the platform. Walking back onto the Claytor Concourse, the main east-west corridor is lined with more food outlets, including the J-Bahn pan bakery chain, as well as a more conventional Hudson News and a McDonald's, along with a private station for nursing mothers. Going back to the west of the concourse, we'll walk south down this passage past an ATM and back into the retail concourse. Looking through this window, and you can see we're back at where we started at the Southern Metro station entrance. As we approach the end of this tour, I'll leave you with some hope in the retail concourse. Despite all the doom and gloom in the media, Washington Post, about Union Station, this chocolate shop is still going strong, and this ice cream shop will soon be moving in. The way I see it, while COVID may have dampened the figurative fire of Union Station, it's far from being out. And with the proposed projects I mentioned, the station looks set to come roaring back stronger than ever in the future. But in the meantime, I've got a snowbound train home to catch, so I'll see you around. Thanks for watching.
This is the end of the line for the J-Bahn today. Come ride with us again when we release new content.